Hello and welcome. This is the Marketplace. It's 1 o'clock and it's time to talk about your business here on the Marketplace. We're going to actually talk about business markets and trends and how global development is actually impacting your business activities here in Ghana and also across the continent of Africa. And on the program today, the Finance Ministry explains reasons for budget deficit in mid-year review, and also government considers new unclaimed asset bill to ensure that all goes into one particular fund and later published. So all these and more and their implications we are looking at here on the Marketplace. My name is John Kojo Amoako. You can also stay interactive by actually tweeting at our handle Joy Business GH, and on Facebook we are at Joy Business. For more business stories, you can log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Once again, my name is John Kojo Amoako. Marketplace returns shortly after this break. Welcome back. In our first story, Finance Minister Seth Terkper has been given reasons why the mid-year budget recorded a deficit. In an interview after an engagement with journalists on the supplementary budget, the Finance Minister reiterated the reason, the seasonal and unpredictability in some sectors as being some causes.
After the main cocoa season in particular, you have a huge inflow of forex on account of the cocoa board borrowing, the payments, and so you normally saw the city stabilize around then, but then you go straight into Christmas and into Easter, school reopening, and many things around that era, which often give rise to a high demand, for forex. And in fact, going into March, when you have repatriation of dividends and others, puts a lot of pressure. What it means is you go into various arrangements, include to manage the smoothing, your flow of forex onto the market as demand goes up, and down. So the deficit also goes similarly. For example, if I project a deficit of 6% and I'm monitoring it, in between quarters when commodity prices go down, as we had in the case of crude oil, or when the FPSO has a problem, I may not achieve my quarter target, and the trajectory will suggest something otherwise. But I think the most important thing is that if you look at it over consistently, from when we were near 12%, depending on the revision, which ended up about above 10% deficit to today, one can say that not even the setbacks like the 2.5 years disruption in gas supply or fall in cocoa prices, some of which is why cocoa recovers somewhat but not at previous levels, and similarly the shortfall in crude oil prices in particular has affected the trajectory. And you know that in many instances we have even overperformed with respect to the rate at which we are bringing down the deficit. So I think that longer perspective, of the trend is important.
Now, still staying with the Finance Minister, how difficult or easy is it to claim a lost or forgotten financial property, be it account balances or investment of a deceased relative from a financial institution? Well, according to the Finance Minister, Seth Terkper, plans are at advanced stage to automatically transfer or inactive or dormant account and investment balances into the Unclaimed Asset Fund for management and publication by the state under the Unclaimed Asset Bill, soon to be laid before Parliament. Unclaimed funds like balances from dormant account, dividend, interest on bonds, pension entitlement, and others are to be transferred to government and managed effectively by government until their owners or next of kin are identified.
In recent times, non-bank financial institutions, and in particular microfinance institutions, have come under intense public scrutiny, including scrutiny of this House. often they operate schemes that erode the deposit base of microfinance, rural and community banks by offering customers very high and unsustainable interest rates on their deposits. Besides the bill in Parliament to regulate the practice, government plans to set up, that's the Bank of Ghana, an apex institution for microfinance institutions similar to the apex bank for rural banks. We are aware that the Bank of Ghana, is working on this proposal. Unclaimed Assets Scheme. The Unclaimed Assets Program, to be launched soon, is a program for managing assets or funds that are presumed to be abandoned, stranded, and remain unclaimed by their owners.
Now, so that was according to the minister in Parliament yesterday. They're giving us what exactly is it that they are doing. But then, to give us some perspective on this particular bill being proposed by the finance minister, we do have Nana Otu Achampong, who is from the second he's the Executive Education and Research Center. Then, Nana, you're welcome to the marketplace.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Nana, according to the finance minister, it's about time the government takes over the management and publication of unclaimed asset, be it account balances, interest on bonds, and other investment. What exactly does it mean, and what does it also mean to you and I, Ghanaians, basically?
Well, a provision has been made in the new bill, that is Banks and Other Specialized Deposit-Taking Institutions Bill, which was passed by Parliament on 15th of July. And it relates to Section 143 with the title Unclaimed Balances. And what this is to do is that until now, different banks have different definitions of what you call a dormant account. For some, a year without operating the account will go into dormancy. Others 2 years, others 3 years. So this bill seeks to standardize it, that with effect from the bill becoming law, if there is no activity in either a deposit or savings account for 24 months, that's 2 years, then that account qualifies to be titled as a dormant account. Then it should be moved into an account called Register of Dormant Accounts within that bank. Now, after 3 years, after the 2 years, now then, within 3 years, the bank should advertise in 2 newspapers of national circulation to the effect that your account has been moved into a register of dormant accounts. If after that you don't come forward, then it's transferred to Bank of Ghana to be held there infinitum, that is forever, until you come forward, either the account holder himself, or if they are dead, their legal representative should come forward and claim the balance on the account. If nobody comes forward, then it becomes state property.
Okay, so basically that is the principle underlining this particular bill. But yes, the issue is, let me also recap here. In 2 years, it can be classified as dormant. After in 3 years, then it actually moves to the Register of Dormant Account, and also after 3 years, then it goes to the central bank, that's the Bank of Ghana.
Yeah,
exactly.
Now after 2 years, it moves into
the Register of Dormant, exactly. Yes, right. And then after 3 years, it goes to the Bank of Ghana, takes over. But the point is this: that we are looking at money here, and then the time value of money. Who accounts for the time value of money here? I'm talking about interest and other accruals onto this particular account.
Okay. Up to the 3 years, if there are any charges applicable to the account, they will be applied. So therefore, if it's interest accrued or bank charges, they will be applied. When it moves to Bank of Ghana, then it ceases. Everything else ceases, and the account becomes a sort of a naked account. So it's held there on behalf of the customer until whenever time they wake up and come to the bank. And
okay. Let's stay a bit more on the principle underlining this particular bill being proposed by the finance minister there. Now, we do know that the status quo is that in the event you lose a relative, or if you are actually applying to claim assets of a deceased relative from the banks, there's a procedure. Can you take us through, let's say in 30 seconds, what procedure is there available? Maybe under the property law. I know you're not a lawyer, but you are an astute banker, but I'm sure you know the process. Can you take us through that in 30 seconds? Then we can just propose what is new, so people also understand and appreciate the differences between the two.
Well, okay. To start with, this is not Minister of Finance proposing. This is a bill that has been passed by Parliament. So Parliament has gone through and agreed. So this is that. Now, regarding a dead person or an incapacitated person, because if somebody becomes unfortunately insane, then they fall under the same category. In that case, their legal representative will have to go through the procedure of applying to the account holder. In this case, if the 3 year has elapsed, then to go to the Bank of Ghana. Then they apply to Bank of Ghana and gain access to the account. If it's under 3 years, but after 2 years, then they will apply to the institution that is holding the account and then get access to the account as well. So that is the procedure. And for those who are dead, they are supposed to have a legal representative. Either if they were interstate without a will, then one that would be appointed. If they had a will, then they would have appointed somebody to act on their behalf in case of death.
Okay, Nana, you've been a banker for a long time. You've been advising and consulting for banks for quite some time now. Can you, in your estimation, quantify how much we have insofar as this amount of money is concerned sitting down there in banks as we speak?
Unquantifiable. It runs into several thousands of millions because until now, all these monies have been sitting in the accounts of banks and other financial institutions. And that is what got Parliament to wake up and said, no, why should all these monies be sitting there until thy kingdom comes? So rather, let's move it into state coffers, and then because state has perpetual succession, and so if ever the person or their legal representative comes up, then we can pay it from that fund. If they don't, then the state can effectively use that money for public good.
Okay. Has it ever been the case that maybe as a result of the bureaucratic procedure, the hiring of a legal representation and all, some people abandon even taking possession of this particular money, and then the bank takes over? Because we also do have instances where bank officials, in connivance with some fraudulent members of society, do forge some document and then claim this amount of money, knowing very well that nobody will come up to claim it.
Well, as you said, that is a fraud. So
exactly.
It goes into fraudulent arena. But as it stands, if you have an account at the bank and it becomes dormant, if you are alive, you should go back to the bank and they will give you access to the account. If you are dead, then your legal representative does it. But the state, i.e. Parliament, has not been happy that people have had several thousands of monies in banks and then they have disappeared because nobody went to claim the money, or for that matter, the bank itself will have unfettered access to the use of this money until the second coming of Christ.
I like that one. But let's also do let's say in a minute, divide into two. It is also required by the law that in the event, like you're saying, after 3 years, when the BOG or the Bank of Ghana takes over the custody of this amount, and then the finance minister referred to is at the unclaimed asset fund, basically. So it is required of the state to publicize these names, so the owners who may not even be aware can come forward to take it. Well, how about that one? Can you explain a bit to us?
The publication should emanate from the account holder, that is the institution that is holding the account on behalf of the customer.
In this case, let's say a BOG after 3 years.
After 3 years, they don't do any further publication because they would have done enough. 2 years, they have published. They will first write to the last known address on your contact card. And secondly, they will move to a newspaper and publish it. So after this, if you are not coming forward, then really, either you don't need a balance of the account or you are beyond where we can find you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know this also includes, apart from the account balances, it also includes treasury bills, interest on bonds and others, any other financial investment you've had and all that. Nana, we thank you very much for your time here, also exposing us to this particular bill or law and that what the implications on you and I. That was Nana Otu-Acheampong, who's an executive member associated to the second Center for Executive Education and Research there, bringing us to speed on this new law as proposed by the minister, and he's also saying that it's almost already law there. Now, moving on here on the marketplace, as Ghana's debt situation continues to worsen, the World Bank has expressed some optimism in managing the debt. In an interview with Joy Business News, program leader at the World Bank, Errol Graham, explained that the country's fiscal policies are going a long way to improve the country's ability to beat its private and public debt.
Ghana's total debt continues to skyrocket, with statistics pointing close to the 100 billion mark. Meanwhile, government has persistently indicated its willingness to borrow to fund some development projects. Despite the obvious increase in Ghana's debt portfolio, program leader at the World Bank, Errol Graham, has expressed optimism, saying Ghana's fiscal policies create a prime atmosphere for debt reduction.
Well, Ghana's debt situation, like the other countries in the region, are challenging at the moment. But we've seen movements towards dealing with those challenges. First, we've seen, for example, the reduction in the fiscal deficit from over 10% to below 10%, more like 6% in 2015, and that has been a big driver of the debt dynamics. And so, what we expect to see over time is an improvement in the debt situation.
Meanwhile, government is being advised to look at diaspora bonds as an inexpensive and effective means of funding development in the country and across the continent. Diaspora bonds are government debt instruments that target remittances of members of the Ghanaian community abroad. This was made known by the program leader of the World Bank office, Errol Graham, in an interview with Joy Business, where he suggested some alternatives to borrowing from the international capital market.
Statistics indicate that nearly 140 million Africans live outside the continent, generating up to an estimated 53 billion in savings within their various locations each year, according to the latest United Nations Commission on Trade and Development UNCTAD report. The potential for the high levels of foreign remittances for diaspora bonds is enormous. Program leader of the World Bank Group, Errol George Graham, agrees with this notion.
I think the presentation made specific reference to diaspora bonds, which I think has potential across the region, not just speaking of Ghana, but across the region as a whole. There are diaspora segments in the US, in the UK, in Europe, that countries could actually tap into for specific resources for development. The diaspora bond would do two things. One, they could allow the countries to access financing at much lower cost than either in the domestic market or even elsewhere in the external market. And two, it could give countries long-term financing depending on whether they issue 10, 15, or 20-year bond. They may be able to go even beyond 20 years, depending on how the bond is structured.
Diaspora bonds can be very useful in the financing of emerging and developing economies. However, many factors, including financial stability, international support, widely recognized credit ratings, as well as the structure of the bond itself, are required for the success of this initiative.
We're taking a short break. Marketplace returns after this. Another story, the CEO or the Chief Executive Officer of AgroBasilia, a global commodities and industrial brokerage firm, Nana Yale, has emphasized that tapping into other renewable energy sources apart from hydro and thermal can be a turning point in rectifying the persistent power issues in the country. Ghana's energy sector crisis continues to be the bane of businesses. With the return of power outages, many businesses are once again bearing the brunt of the erratic power cuts being experienced across the country. Nana Yale was speaking in an interview with Joy Business.
Well, if you look at your energy mix now, Ghana is dependent on hydro, thermal. Now it's embarked on the wind and solar. The bioenergy experiment in Ghana isn't on such a rapid fire type of progression that we at AgroBasilia would like to see. So if we can tap into this whole analysis and look at the problems the nation has been facing with all these blackouts. I mean, we've been here for less than a week and we've experienced many blackouts already. And that to me isn't conducive to what we call a modern infrastructure. A modern society today must have reliable power. How are you going to run your industries if it's sporadic, you know? And so that is our focus, to kind of come in here, study Ghana's energy matrix, and pull in our resource and help the nation find its footing in the 21st industry.
Now, the Chief Executive Officer of Standard Chartered Bank Ghana and West Africa, Kweku Bediado, has been appointed the chairman of the Ghana Stock Exchange. He takes over from Dr. Sam Mensah, whose term ended at the last annual general meeting held on July 14, 2016. And this brings us to the end of the marketplace today. My name is John Kojo Amwako. But for more business stories, you can log on to myjoyonline.com/business. If you want to tweet at us, our handle is Joy Business GH, and on Facebook we are at Joy Business. That will be it for the day. Have a very wonderful afternoon.